This video was recorded in Minnesota, right before I went to Mall of America.
Huh. What about you?
I want to go on a date with Nev Campbell so I can give her a nice ladle of stew.
What? How am I supposed to even find her?
It's this one. Hi, I'm Kitty Monk, and I'm here to talk to you about Family Guy, or more specifically, Brian Griffin, again. Okay, I'm gonna level with y'all. I was quite drunk, and I was in Minnesota, meaning I need a video and fast. Therefore, I chose an episode I know you guys have been wanting me to get to for a while. Well, that and it's been a while since I made a Family Guy video. Okay, so let's start at the beginning because I can't talk about the episode itself until I do the whole introduction and couple of episodes that relate to it, okay? A staple of Family Guy is Brian and Stewie, and their friendship, which I think works out pretty well. Brian was the smartest, most sophisticated member of the Griffins, and he often felt misunderstood by the world. Really, the only person he had a deep connection with was an old hermit. Meanwhile, Stewie is an evil genius, but because he's a baby, nobody takes him seriously. Of course, after a while, the writers realized this would be a pretty good team-up. I mean, come on. We got a good many episodes on this concept of just Brian and Stewie hanging out.
You know, you're going about this all wrong, Brian. If you want to win people over, you can't just drone on like Ben Stein. You've got to have a little more showmanship.
But then something happened. Something terrible. Brian had his character regress. He went from a misunderstood genius who could be a jerk but genuinely meant well and loved his family to a jerk who uses his political beliefs as an excuse to be a jerk to those around him, including his family. Like when he campaigned for the legalization of weed and then sold out the second Carter told him he would be able to get his book published.
All you gotta do is make an impassioned anti-pot speech in public. Forget it, Carter. Even Stewie says the book is good enough on its own. Right, Stewie?
His terrible, horrible book.
Brian Griffin's Faster Than the Speed of Love has astonishingly not sold a single copy thanks to universal panning by literary critics.
Or when he told Meg that there is no God because she's ugly.
And Stewie got to build a nice little fort with all of your unsold books.
My house is made of mediocrity.
And one thing many fans don't like is how he mistreats Stewie. Well, now mistreats Stewie. The biggest one that comes to mind for me is Brian writes a bestseller, where Brian learns his book didn't really sell well.
Oh, this is so weird. Look what they used to pack your book in. Shredded up pieces of your book.
Okay, that's it. I'm finished.
Gee, I wonder why. Actually, that's probably my worst one. As a joke, Brian writes a self-help book called Wish It, Want It, Do It, which could be a good idea for an episode. I mean, The Simpsons covered self-help books and Bart Gets a Z.
Break your dream down into smaller wishes, then break those down into wishable actions.
This is starting to sound like one of those loony self-help books.
Loony?
Maybe Family Guy could show how they're a big scam, as in maybe they don't really quote-unquote help like they're supposed to.
Wish it. What are all the things you want most in the world? Use the following blank pages to write down all of your dreams and desires.
Oh, brilliant. Make them do the work.
Yeah, why not?
And Brian writes his book in an afternoon, which for some writers, that's basically awful. It's a sign you did not try. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas was written over the course of 3 days, but meanwhile, As I Lay Dying was written over the course of 6 weeks. Although Faulkner didn't change a thing. I don't know, you get my point. It just depends on each individual writer and the book. Think about how much longer it took Brian to write Faster Than the Speed of Love, even if somebody already stole his idea beforehand, compared to Wish It, Want It, Do It. The thing is, his book gets successful in part thanks to Stewie because Stewie has connections in the publishing world.
Penguin Publishing. One moment, please. Sir, I have a Brian Griffin on the line.
Out! Get out! Get out now!
And Stewie even becomes his manager, or agent, I guess, because Stewie doesn't produce anything like Princess Carolyn does. The thing is, well, Brian lets the power of writing a bestseller go to his head, because even if he did write a bestseller, well, even he said he just wrote a boring self-help book, and he didn't write something he was passionate about, or that changed the writing world, or something like that. I mean, it's still an accomplishment that he did it, but you know what I mean. So he starts acting like a real jerk to everybody, including Stewie, aka his best friend and the reason he got to where he was.
Get over here. No, everything is not okay. Can you figure out what the problem is? How do you think I feel walking out of the back room of a restaurant? I am mortified.
Jerk. Although there is one funny moment.
Geez, Stewie, there's no need to... Ooh, I said no gray M&Ms. These are all gray.
Fun fact, dogs seeing in black and white is a myth, one I hate that shows perpetuate, just as it's a myth that Brian Griffin can be a good person. Oh, and like usual, Brian also uses this as an opportunity to be a creep and pick up women, because of course he frickin' does.
Ah, she's so pretty, isn't she? Do you think she liked me? God, how weird would it be if she just showed up at my room later? Oh my god, were you thinking of doing that? Sending her to my room?
Ugh, I would hate meeting Brian if he were a real person. Get away from my legs. I actually value them, even if I never shave them. Now, even if I hate Brian with a burning passion in this episode, especially more so because I'm a content creator who had to work hard to get to where she is, and still works hard even to this day, like I work every single day. Well, there's one reason I don't mind this episode all that much, and that's because of a simple thing called karma. See, Brian gets the role of a lifetime on Bill Maher. Mayor, whatever he's called. Okay, we'll just call him Bill, okay? In this roundtable format style show. Too lazy to Google the actual name. Oh, Real Time with Bill Maher. Okay, that's what it's called. But Stewie, likely because Brian has been running him ragged, accidentally makes an error, and this causes Brian to fire him.
Because that's where...
Because that's where Because...
Well... I can...
Are you serious? He got you to where you were, dude. And besides, Ariana Huffington was in the Cleveland show, and we all love that. As expected, Brian goes on and makes a complete fool of himself, since he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Oh, did you... When did you say that?
I just did.
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Maybe because it sounds like you're talking with a mouthful of syrup, I just didn't get it.
Oh, and better yet, he admits that he...
What do you want? I wrote it in a day.
Ooh. Now, there could be reasons for Brian's behavior, especially towards Stewie. I mean, he's a dog. Perhaps he just wants that... Oh, come on, I had to do it. Come on, even Vinny's 1/4 that. Like in Be Careful What You Fish For, where Stewie reveals that the new daycare Lois has been sending him to is actually poorly run and illegal, since his teacher, Miss Emily, treats them badly.
I mean, you never see them, but you can hear the shower.
Really? That seems weird.
Yeah, and is it normal that Miss Emily tied us all to the sink while she went out to return a birthday present?
No, that's not normal at all.
In BTW, Brian is shown and told that this school sucks, like he literally sees it with his own eyes.
Oh, what happened to that kid?
He fell off a stool trying to turn off Maury Povich. This is awful.
Maury Povich? Why, he's worse than Steve Wilkos. Is he still? I haven't watched either shows in years. Brian goes outside to have a word with the teacher, who isn't actually teaching. But as it turns out, she's actually kinda hot.
Yeah, hi. Who are you?
Brian. Brian Steele. I was just dropping Stewie off.
Oh, yeah!
So he lets it slide and tries to do whatever he can to get into Miss Emily's pants. Or bikini in this case, because that's how they met. Even if it means literally ignoring the fact she's abusing children and one of her victims is his best friend.
And by the way, I actually think she's doing a pretty good job. She's teaching you guys independence.
We're one! Independence means we die!
Like, at one point, she yanks Stewie so hard that she dislocates his arm, ouch, just because he stood up to her.
I finally stood up for all of us, and she said I shouldn't raise my voice and pulled me really hard into the other room, and my arm came out of its socket.
Are you sure? Are you sure you didn't just sleep on it, funny?
Once again, proving my point that people will do whatever to get you to stand up for yourself and then get pissed once you finally do. And Brian does this.
Mom! You are not going anywhere. I finally have a date with Miss Emily tomorrow, and I'm not going to let you or anybody else get in my way until I have seen every inch of her naked.
Do you even hear yourself?
Some friend you are. And they say Mordecai is a simp. Brian's not really a simp. He's more like a jerk. But you want to know the thing that changes Brian's mind? The fact that Miss Emily has a boyfriend.
What you did to these kids? There is a special place in hell for people like you.
Oh, so now you care. Therefore, I have to ask, does Brian hate Stewie? Honestly, this was the episode that got me to realize, like, wow, Brian sucks. Like, as a kid, maybe, like, I watched it the week after it premiered. Yeah, I really thought that. I don't know, but that leads us to the episode Herpy the Love Sore, which because of YouTube standards, I most occasionally called Boppo.
I mean, like what if it wasn't called herpes? Like what if it was called Boppo? Huh? Oh, I got a little Boppo. Oh, that's cute. Ah, I want Boppo.
Brian, I don't like you, but for once I'm stealing your terrible idea. Where Brian proves just how much he loves Stewie, his supposed best friend. So let's discuss. But before we get to that, we need to get to the Family Guy tradition of burning screen time by having most of Act 1 be devoted to an unimportant plot point that doesn't really come up later, and or simply sets up the rest of the episode. And this time, it's especially worse. At least with the other plots, you can argue that stuff happens, even if it is kind of pointless. Here, well, it's just Peter saying he stole Quagmire's mail, opened it up to reveal it's a whip, cue Stewie joke.
Hey, Dad, that's a cool whip. Ah, I thought you couldn't understand me!
It depends, sweetie. They're not really doing anything with it beyond what's expected, like he just stands there saying what he'll do with it.
Or do I open it up and see if it contains He-Mans?
Do not open that box.
You know, Lois, physicists believe there are 2 alternate universes, one in which I don't open the box.
And to be fair, he does get around to using it, but it's mostly the standard stuff you would expect, like going down to Virginia and whipping Cleveland, because of course he does.
Give you a heads up that Peter has a whip because, well, you know, given your racial heritage, it seems like something you might want to keep an eye out for.
I mean, no offense, dude, I'm saying this kind of wrong, but Jerome is right in town. Does he still run the clam at this point? Also,
Peter, be careful with that thing. Remember, we're renting this house.
That's depressing.
didn't you buy the house because of a settlement involving the broken condom that created Chris? Yeah, not really a big fan of the jokes about the Griffins being dirt poor. I mean, they technically are, likely because Peter spends all his money on stuff, but it does kind of get annoying, and it feels like the only reason they do it is because, hey, you could never do a nuclear family format like this today, as in blue collar dad and housewife mom. But later, Brian is watching a Western movie with Stewie. Oh, this poor baby does not know what he's getting into. Where Stewie witnesses the two main characters becoming blood brothers, which basically means you cut your hand and mix it with the other person. And the mingling of blood, which many believe is the blood in the hand, is it really? Means you can't harm them, and it's a show of loyalty. It's the closest form of bonding for men. Well, that or being milk brothers, but I'm surprised the show hasn't covered that yet. Well, then again, not surprised. Stewie wants to do it, and Brian agrees, which seems like a really sweet moment. Seems being the key word here.
You don't have to say it like that.
Oh, come on, we're best friends, right?
Stewie, I'm not...
Actually, we're even more than best friends. I mean, we share the same home. We've been on countless adventures together.
Now, to be fair, despite what a lot of people say, Brian does try to gently refuse. I mean, come on, it would probably hurt. And while I do love blood, I am scared of knives. I mean, I can't even cut a steak without rocking the whole table. But Stewie presses on, and Brian agrees to his demand.
You happy?
Actually, yes. I mean, I really feel the bond, Brian. I feel like we're closer now. You know, more connected, more intertwined.
Yeah, I guess in a way we are.
Oh, kid, you are in for a rude awakening. Oh, I'm sorry. But before we get to that, we must get to the horrible B-plot, because this episode has a pretty bad B-plot that doesn't get as much hate as the main plot, but is still pretty bad. Now, earlier in the episode, Peter was having fun playing with the whip, and this could have led to something. Maybe he becomes a proper cowboy, unlike the rodeo episode. Oh, poor Peter. That stupid breeding bull. Or maybe he becomes Indiana Jones in the 21st century. Or maybe Quagmire found out he went through his mail, and this spoils their friendship, because spare the whip and spoil the child. Yeah, no, this leads to nothing. Pretty much just nothing. The boys go to the clam for a drink and find that there's 3 guys in their booth. 3 muscular, jerky guys who probably are part of a gang.
Awkward, but you guys are sitting in our booth.
Listen here, pencil neck. This is our booth now, and we ain't leaving. So what are you gonna do about it?
I bet they watched that motorcycle show. You know, the one with Katie Seagal. Can't think about it off the top of my head. Peter and the guys ask for the booth, and of course they are refused, which, okay, even if that's their spot, and it sucks if somebody is in your spot, well, it's a public bar. Anybody can sit there. And to their credit, the guys are pretty respectful about it.
Look, dudes, clearly you don't want to move, and that's fine. We'll come back in an hour.
Nice try, Wheelie, but this ain't your booth no more.
Just putting this out there for later. But the muscular guys don't care.
It's anywhere near this booth, and we'll bust your kneecaps.
we're willing to take that risk.
Shut up, Joe.
Actually, this would have been cool to see. Just saying, they obviously can't be there every hour of the day. Imagine the guys try to sleep in the booth to keep it, but there's bear traps or whatever to deter them. Or they don't go to the bathroom, or they're like robots or something. I don't know. Instead, they're frightened into giving up their spot.
Didn't have to come to this, but you fellas are in big trouble. If you could just move back like 8 feet.
Is that my whip?
Hey!
Well, I guess the whip amounted to nothing. Chekhov's gun went right out the window. Honestly, it could have been used for the finale. But back to the A-plot, because I have a bone to pick. Stewie wakes up one morning and discovers his face is covered in more sores than a coma patient's back. And as it turns out, well, Stewie has herpes, and he got them from Brian and the Blood Brothers thing.
Who gave me herpes? What? What are you talking about? When we swapped blood! Look at my lip! It's a disgusting herpes sore!
Yeah, just putting it out there because sometimes I like to educate my viewers. There's a few things this episode gets wrong. First off, herpes is not transmitted via blood, strangely enough. It's usually transmitted via skin-to-skin contact. Like contact football, like sports, like touching somebody's finger because they might have a sore on there, or a football that was rubbed with the sores. Fluids like saliva, or other fluids. I think you know what I mean by other fluids. Or by kissing. And while, as Stewie puts it,
it's a disgusting, unsightly, unsavory disease and it lasts for life!
Well, herpes is actually a pretty broad term that can mean a variety of things. While it is an STD, well, most people have a form of it. Have you ever had chickenpox or a cold sore? Well, you have it. Honestly, they estimate as much as 80% of the population has some form, and you normally don't get it through, like, doing it with somebody. You get it through, say, being a little kid, and then your mom or whoever kisses you on the forehead. The kind Stewie has is obviously gross, but not at all accurate, I would hate to say. Just putting it out there because one reason people dislike this episode so heavily is because of the gross out, and I couldn't agree more. It doesn't offend me, it just grosses me out. But for other reasons. One, because of the massive cutaways, like they have multiple just about herpes. Like, dude, it's not funny the first time, it's not gonna be funny the 12th time. Like, why even talk about it? But there's another reason. See, as it turns out, well, Brian knew full well he had the sickness, I can't say disease, this whole time.
Oh my god, look at you! You're more herpes than dog! Okay, fine, I admit it, I gave you herpes. You knew you had herpes and you still agreed to swap blood with me!
Like, it would be a totally different story if he didn't, because you could make the argument he's irresponsible, but still somewhat innocent, because he would be just as innocent as Stewie, but he tries to brush it aside.
Yeah, but, you know, I mean, isn't the worst thing about herpes just the stigma? I mean, like, what if it wasn't called herpes?
So, let me get this straight. You knew you had a sickness, aka a lifelong sickness, and because you were too arrogant to just say you had it, you infected your best friend, aka a literal infant, who you claim to care about, and now you're giving him a disease for which there is no cure and a huge stigma against, just because you didn't want to say no. Again, at least if you didn't actually know, it'd be a bit more excusable. Plus, maybe they could have done something like Brian says no, and then Stewie, like, makes them blood brothers when he's asleep and he wakes up with herpes, because in that sense you could argue it would be karma because he was like, I warned you. Not to mention that even if Family Guy wouldn't go down this route, well, herpes is actually fatal if infants get it, since their immune systems aren't as fully developed. So if we're going by reality here, albeit to be fair, ignoring the fact that this mostly only applies to babies who got it during childbirth, you know what I mean. This means that Brian could have killed Stewie just because he was too lazy to say no.
Shut up! Just shut up! You should be ashamed of yourself! I mean, look at me!
Wow, you really care about this kid, dude, your supposed best friend. Oh, and it gets worse. Now, I am a big proponent of the idea that there are no bad ideas, just bad executions. And you know what? I still stick to this idea. Since to me, all of Family Guy's bad episodes aren't quote-unquote bad to me because of the premise, just how they execute it. Like, I hate Screams of Silence because it tries to be a very special episode, but if it was about, say, Brenda staying with Jeff because she's a masochist, because she's Quagmire's sister, that would be a totally different story that would actually cross the line twice. Or the idea of Stewie raising a kid with Brian is cool, but that idea being implemented by Stewie, impregnating himself with Brian's baby and just not adopting a kid like he did when he married that woman in the hotel breakfast episode, yeah, not so much. Here, I think there's a lot they could have done to fix this. For me, the biggest is don't have Brian know he's infected. Like, I might be repeating myself, but think about it. maybe Stewie could wake up with herpes, then he could show Brian, he could be like, oh my god. He could be just as shocked as Stewie. Since while him still infecting Stewie would obviously be bad, well, it's a different story if you don't actually know. Because some sicknesses, they don't really have symptoms, and herpes is one of them. Perhaps as a dog, the symptoms are different for him, for instance, because it's a human disease, he doesn't get the symptoms, but it is still in his blood. Because yes, there is a version of herpes that infects dogs, and it can kill puppies, even if dogs can't spread it to humans or vice versa, because there's two different versions. Guys, there's multiple different strains of herpes. Perhaps then the episode could be a what-if style plotline, where Stewie and Brian try to track down just who or what gave Brian the sickness. Or since Stewie is a scientist, well, maybe he is able to manufacture a vaccine or a cure for herpes, since one does not exist as of yet. And maybe it could be like virtually anybody, because like I said, herpes isn't always spread via doing it. Maybe Brian really got it because he had a chew toy or something, or because Lois pet him, or I don't know. Just saying, because the disease is lifelong, another problem folks have with the episode is it doesn't end with anybody being cured. And keep in mind, I said anybody. Like imagine if the episode Tonsil Trouble from South Park ended with both Carmen and Kyle still being HIV positive to this day. Or if Edible Panties had Steve still have the ick, and every other episode.
A cure! Hooray! I had no idea. That is something of which I am just now learning.
Oh my god, you knew!
Just saying, both of those episodes did the idea of somebody intentionally giving somebody else a terrible, horrible sickness a lot better. In both instances, the plague bringer was rightfully called out as wrong and got karma for it.
Why would I infect you and not tell you there's a cure? And you'd be forced to come home early and spend time with me for a change? How absurd!
Corbin gets his stuff broken by Kyle, including his beloved Xbox, while Klaus loses Steve's friendship, and it's implied he got sick from Haley with a disease that's far worse than the ick.
Oh, you poor thing. Fish can't get herpes, can they?
Plus it helps that Steve was able to find a cure for ick, since it's a pretty treatable condition.
Klaus, guess what? I went online and found out there's a cure for ick. You can buy it at any pet store.
But things get worse with the B-plot, because those jerks stole the booth. Peter and his friends are forced to sit at the bar, and I know their pain. I hate when I have to sit there even for just a meal.
What happened? I couldn't see.
I have no idea. The TV is like directly over my head.
They can't just go to another booth though? And they find that they hate it. Fair enough.
Veins of alcoholics wearing shorts.
What?
I said.
Huh?
Yay, more gross out. I so love gross out, totally. I mean, the 20 images of the face looking like sores was so much better, you can tell from my voice. But Peter is unwilling to go and decides to be a coward. All because he didn't stand up to these muscular guys who could probably kill him if they so pleased.
Flying monkeys. Wait, there's flying monkeys?
Well, they exist in the real world as a psychological term for people who do the bidding of an abuser, typically a narcissist but not always, either willingly or unwillingly, or because they were manipulated into doing so. Basically, it's another word for a pawn, especially in abuse situations.
Hey, I'm the rational lion, so guys.
Anyway, back to the A-plot. As I mentioned above, and as Brian mentioned, or tried to deflect with, herpes is a disease with a major stigma, and Stewie experiences it at school.
Oh my god! Your mouth looks like the underside of a boat!
Good lord, nobody wants to be near me!
You know, I'm surprised Lois never found out, nor was notified her son looked like, to quote Stewie's teacher, the underside of a boat. I mean, I get it, Peter thinks she's in charge of the kids, but still, I guess that would mean Brian would get consequences. Well, I guess maybe Peter's busy dealing with the bar stuff. Are you happy now, Brian? You basically ruined his life. As a result of the guys chickening out at the bar and getting beat up, well, word spreads like wildfire that they're cowards, because victim blaming. You do remember with Angela and Brenda, that Family Guy loves the victim blame. Even though they claim to support victims, nobody will listen to them. Not their subordinates, not even their families, not their co-workers.
Do what he tells me to do.
I was in the military for 30 years back when that meant something. I don't deal with gay people.
See, him I respect.
But like, really, who was the one to say it? Like, I don't know, I'm just saying, like, was it the jerks? Like, all they really did was steal the bar. I don't know, I feel like maybe we could have gotten a scene or a cutaway of somebody like announcing it on the horizon.
Everybody heard about what happened over at the Clam and how those guys made you their...
Oh, let's see, you do better. Just saying, Chris, when you had a bully, you got beat up by him. It was your dad who had to beat him up. Although, granted, at the end, you did beat up your father because he became a bully himself, even though his old bully did not apologize to him. But I kind of like Chris here, even if I won't later for reasons. And I like just how he bullies Peter.
That's right, you wuss. In fact, the way I see it, I'm the man of the house now.
Something tells me he's always wanted to do this to his father, like as a revenge fantasy, but he couldn't until he was notified he was a coward. But he does deliver on changes, unlike Peter.
It's not very comfortable, Chris.
My back kinda hurts.
I'm just staring up at the ceiling.
Shut up! I promised changes and I delivered!
Shut up, those seats are amazeballs. And at least he made a change. He's like Denny. That's more than Peter can say about anything. But yes, in a way, Chris being in this episode makes it 10 million times worse, especially in terms of implications. See, Stewie is upset nobody wants to be around him, except for Rupert, because he's now a plague bringer. But there is somebody on his side, and that's Chris, because Chris was infected by Brian too, via the same method. Blood brothers.
This house is like backstage at a Whitesnake concert.
Not only that, but I also got it from Brian. We're blood brothers too. He knew he had herpes and he didn't say anything.
Ew, ew, ew. See what I mean? This makes you question things. Like, when did this happen? Was it like last week? Like, was it when Chris was a kid? When he was an infant? Again, with Stewie, you can argue it's just an accident, but no. Brian's a freaking creep who doesn't care about getting other people sick.
Maybe he was mad I gave him fleas. I don't know.
I didn't need to know that, Chris. But is that a reference to he's too sexy for his fat? Since Chris didn't give him fleas in that instance, I don't think. Wasn't it the acupuncturist? Anyway, it seems with Brian, he's like that doctor from Indiana that got all of his patients pregnant because he wanted to make a master race or some crap like that. I don't know. I had to use him for my independent study on how Christian cults tend to make and then protect abusers. Like, why does he keep infecting people or at least use protection? Because he's embarrassed or something? Like, he knows the consequences, he knows how much it sucks, and yet he's willing to force such a fate onto other people. Why? To make himself feel better? To feel less alone? Because if it's any of those, that's screwed up if it's true. Because he wants attention, affection, because he doesn't care? Actually, that might be the obvious answer. He's a selfish jerk who just doesn't care. Ugh. Stewie and Chris decide to get revenge on Brian. Eventually, because we need to finish up the other disastrous plotline.
Can you please pass the milk?
Shut up, Dad.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'll shut up.
What?
She's right, Lois, she's right. I don't need milk.
Okay, that totally made it worth it. Fight back, Megatron. Fight back. Oh wait, your name's Megan. Fight back, Megan. Fight back. Lois tells him to be a man, because clearly this is his fault, and take back what's his.
No, I'm saying you gotta go down there and take it back, like a man.
Yeah.
Tell that to Joe and Quagmire. Oh wait, I didn't mean Joe and Quagmire. I meant Quarterman and Quagmire, per Bonnie.
Quarter of a man.
Hey, I'm half a man.
Not anymore.
Sorry, just trying to be accurate, guys. It would be a failure on my part as a critic if I got that wrong. So, when did Bonnie switch souls with Tiffany Valentine?
If they see me crying, they'll have to give us our booth back.
Actually, considering the ending, that could have probably worked. Speaking of...
Hey, Kevin. You smell like a rabbit, buddy. Something just happened with a rabbit?
I'll go get my dad.
Yeah, Thanksgiving is just around the corner. I should tackle how they ruined him too. Like, you're wasting Scott Grimes the same way a child wastes his Charizard. Peter tells the guys they should go back down to the Clam and get their booth back. Elsewhere, Brian goes on a date with a hot chick, likely intending to score without protection.
You know, I'm so glad you finally agreed to go out with me, Jenna.
Me too. I'm having a really nice time. You seem like a great guy.
Also, BTW, if you tell a woman you are going to use protection and then you don't, well, that's called stealthing, and in many jurisdictions that's basically considered SA, especially since you're lying about something to get them to sleep with you, because they probably wouldn't have slept with you otherwise. It's basically deceit. Apparently there is a bill for it in Minnesota, but I'm not that well read on the legality of it, and I don't know. Is there one in New Jersey? I think the states that do it are Maine, California, and Washington to my knowledge. The guys tell Jenna, well, Brian's date, that Brian is as disease-riddled as a gas station station bathroom, and they save her the trouble of waking up tomorrow morning and looking like the underside of a boat. I'm sorry, that I'm sorry.
Oh, you must be such a good person to knowingly go out with a herpes-riddled dirtbag.
Ew! I'm sorry, Brian. I've got to go.
Yay, this is kind of awesome. Some karma. Not as spectacular as Brian writes a bestseller, but I guess beggars can't be choosers, I suppose. I bet the B-plot will end just as well. Well... So Peter and the guys go to get their booth back, and fail spectacularly, even if Quagmire shows up like this grand hero, and nobody in the bar helps for some odd reason. That's kind of surprising.
Hey, that was my pool cue! I brought it from home!
Oh. Sorry.
It screws together, and I even have this special little case for it.
I feel bad now.
Peter, I guess in revenge, you should go around town and claim they're being cowards too, because imagine how good that would feel. Not even eating spinach will help.
Oh, God, it's all watery.
Ew, I only eat spinach if it's in an Italian wedding soup. So Peter, get thee to a buca de beppo. The jerks tell Peter to scram, but Peter says probably the funniest line in this episode. Like, this isn't me joking, it's the only part I actually do like or laugh at. Peter says he's never giving up the booth because he's basically experienced his whole life in the booth.
I was in this booth on 9/11. Oh, my God, no! I was in this booth when President Obama was elected. Oh my God, no!
I'm sorry, part of me got back into Family Guy via out-of-context YouTube and Facebook clips, and this was one of them. It sucks the rest of the episode couldn't be up to this same standard of comedy. But rather than simply apologize or be like, well, if the bar means that much to you, we're sorry, you can hang out here, well, the jerks reveal that they aren't going to use it anymore because they're soldiers, and they're going to Afghanistan. Wow, I'm old.
We're shipping out to Afghanistan tomorrow.
You guys are soldiers?
It's our third tour of duty.
Which causes the entire bar to collectively side with them, aka the aggressors who caused this whole violence, rather than the victims, aka the guys who got beat up.
With his head, I salute you.
Everyone, I declare this to be these three guys' day, and not these three guys' day.
Wow, what a cop-out ending. Like, I know everybody says it, but yeah, I really hate it. One, I don't like how they said the guys suck because Joe's own son was in the army and now has PTSD from his experiences, so don't throw Joe under the bus. He was such a firm believer in the army that he was willing to arrest his own son for desertion. Second, no, just because you're a soldier doesn't mean you're entitled to respect the same way the episode portrays it, because you can be a soldier, which is still an inspiring job that does demand a modicum of respect, don't get me wrong, but you can still be a jerk, and when you're a jerk and a soldier, and you use the fact you're a soldier to get out of the fact you're being a jerk, well, that's when you lose my respect. Did he tell that to Neil McBeal, the Navy SEAL?
BoJack Horseman thinks that because he was on TV, that makes him better than everybody. Well, guess what, BoJack? Now I'm on TV! So now I'm better than everybody!
That's right!
Actually, even if I feel like that episode turned BoJack into a mouthpiece, because honestly they could have done more to explore the ideas he's saying instead of just having him say them.
I'm sure a lot of the troops are jerks. Most people are jerks already, and it's not like giving a jerk a gun and telling him it's okay to kill people suddenly turns that jerk into a hero.
I think it handled this concept way better, since they didn't wait until the last minute to tell us that Neil was just abusing his position as a soldier to tell off BoJack. Like, they established it, I believe, in his first scene. BoJack just didn't believe him because why would you?
Rough morning. So I don't need...
You had a rough morning? I spent the last 10 months! Hey!
Here, they should have done that too. Have the jerks reveal they're soldiers in the first scene. Like, dude, I just came back from Afghanistan, and now all I want to do is have a drink. And that's why everybody takes the side of the jerks. Because maybe the reason the guys stand out from them is they're just trying to be respectful, but the jerks paint it like, oh, they didn't do anything because they're cowards.
Can't believe I have to root for Afghanistan now.
I just feel like after everything Joe, Peter, and Quagmire went through, they should have had some form of winning. But no, they don't. Like, don't get me wrong, Peter did some bad stuff by stealing Quagmire's packages and probably deserves some retribution for that. But what did Joe and Quagmire do besides just want to go to the bar and hang out with their friend? Oh no, how dare they unwind by having a drink? How terrible. They're clearly traitors to our nation. But maybe the A-plot will end a bit better. Maybe. just maybe, it won't. Chris and Stewie hack Brian's Facebook account to tell the whole world that he's a plague bringer, and while he's able to bribe Chris off by using his Prius, well, you know Stewie ain't going away that easily.
Stewie, why are you being so vindictive? Because, Brian, for the first time in my life, I realized I couldn't trust you. I couldn't trust my own best friend.
Where have you been? Pretty much Brian's entire character nowadays is being untrustworthy. That's like saying, oh, I thought I could trust the Joker to not murder my baby. But Brian apologizes.
I let you down. I guess I was just too embarrassed to admit I had herpes. It was a rotten thing to do, and I promise I will never lie to you again.
That's it? That's it? That is not a happy ending. I'm sorry, Stewie is still infected. The episode even ends with them saying that Stewie's gonna have to deal with this as an adult, and it's gonna make his life worse.
It really flares up during periods of great stress, like your wedding day or a big job interview.
So, what would you say some of your weaknesses are?
That's probably one of them.
And Brian feels no remorse. Like, the way he phrases it, it's not like he infected Stewie with like a really bad sickness. It's like he just forgot to do something for Stewie. Or like he lied to Stewie about liking his jacket when really it was super ugly. We don't know how long he's had herpes. For all we know, he could have infected every girlfriend he ever had. Jillian, Ida, others. And he only apologized to Stewie, not to anybody else. Not to Chris, not to that girl. Like, seriously? And honestly, I don't think it was because he was embarrassed. I think it was because he just didn't care. Especially considering the scene where Stewie confronts him in the kitchen. I mean, Mr. Enter proposed, mostly as a joke, that Brian leaves the Western movie on to lure people to him so he can give them herpes. And I'm sorry, I now 100% accept that it's canon because how can't I? This is the same guy who abandoned his son until it was profitable for him after all. Stewie, you need to have a better daddy substitute, I'm sorry. Was getting Brian pregnant your form of punishing him? Who cares? I gotta go back to Jersey soon. Anyhow, bye!